Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and we're back with another SFO update video. As you are aware, the SFO update War Under the Mountain releases on the 12th of May. It's this coming Friday. So there's a few things that we need to check out, and thanks again to the SFO team for allowing me some early access to be able to do these videos. Today's video is going to focus around the Chaos Dwarfs, and they haven't received a lot of radical changes, but they have received some changes here and there, which are going to change a little bit on how you play, in all honesty, depending on your army and also on your campaign style. So without further ado, let's begin. So we're going to start off with the faction effects and the lord effects in some of the lords, as they've had a few additions just to make them a little bit more different. Because let's be honest, really there wasn't too much to differentiate them, especially as you work with a tower. They all had great bonuses, but just wasn't really unique. So with Astrogoth Iron Hand, we have the following. Diplomatic Relations +4 for all Chaos factions for every tower settlement that you own. And finally, Control +2 for every concurrent war with a neighboring faction. And there's been some changes in the Lord effects, where casualty replenishment rate for Lord's army has been increased to +10%. The ward save for the Bull Centaur Renderers has been reduced to 10%, because let's be honest, it's kind of strong. And finally, you have the trait of unit mass +25% for Lord's army, meaning that Astrogoth's army is going to be able to hit really hard on the charges. Drazhor of the Ashen is going to focus quite heavily on fire. When it comes to the faction effects, we can see the following. +4 research rate for every tower settlement. That means that with Drazhor, you're going to probably finish the tech trees very, very quickly. And +20 fire resistance to armies in own territory, which is going to be good, especially since you're going to be dealing with Imrik early on. Just having that resistance to fire, and then obviously if you decide to fight the other Chaos Dwarf factions, you're not going to suffer too much. When we go into the Lord effects, we have the following. The upkeep bonus for Kadai units has been reduced to 20%, which is perfectly fine. At the end of the day, it's still very, very good. And then there is a -20 to fire resistance for enemy armies. As the grand majority of your abilities and your attacks are fire-based, yeah, you're gonna be in for a very good time. And lastly, we have Zatan the Black, who has the following changes for the faction effects, +1% casualty replenishment for every tower settlement. This is gonna be something that is going to be very beneficial to you. +5 recruit rank for convoy overseers is going to be absolutely amazing, considering that you have 2 from the very beginning. This is going to make your convoys a lot better, getting some skill points that you will need very early on. So yeah, again, very good change. And finally, if we go to the trait, we got the casualty capture rate increased by 25%, which is absolutely insane, and +20 missile resistance for artillery units. Again, very beneficial considering that they normally get sniped out, and you're going to be going straight into Cafe, which does have a decent amount of missile units. So yeah, very, very cool. Masterful Architects is one of your commandments, your edicts when you control a full province. This has now been increased a little bit, it's been made a little bit better by reducing the construction time by -1 turn for all buildings, to the minimum of 1 turn, obviously. But yeah, very, very beneficial for you, as you will be using labor a lot more for raw materials. So this is going to kind of balance that out a little bit, which I think is going to be quite useful. And a few things that you'll need to know is the outpost buildings, the main building itself, will no longer generate conclave influence. However, it will produce more income. It's also important to note that factories themselves will no longer produce income. This is the main buildings themselves. It's changing everything to make every building a bit more stylized and specialized. And it's not a bad thing. You will definitely have a lot more money to play around with, that's for sure. So having larger armies will seem doable, rather than hobgoblins, 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 and hobgoblins. So this is something very important to note, but your main buildings, such as your towers, will now cost raw materials rather than cash. So this means that you'll have more cash to play around with other things, but you're going to need to funnel a lot of labor to get these buildings up and running. It doesn't really become too much of a noticeable issue. It makes sense, because obviously raw materials being used to actually construct main buildings such as towers rather than just cash. And like I said, it frees up cash for you to run up extra armies, which, yeah, can be useful, especially right now with player bias. Buildings, which generally don't get a lot of attention from the player base for obvious reasons, have now been given a little bit of an extra boost. Like, for example, here, the living quarters, right? This is the one that increases Lord and Hero recruit rank and also extra recruitment capacity. Now also provides experience gain up to plus 4% for characters, with all characters faction-wide. And yes, you can easily stack this if you're building up a bunch of towers in areas where there's no enemies, so you might not need, say, the garrison building, and it definitely helps you get those characters up and running to extra levels. And if you're worried about labor cost and so on, don't you worry, because the furnace building has also received a pretty good bonus here. So you can see rush construction labor cost minus 2% faction wide. Yes, this does stack. So if you're building up early on, it's going to be a bit slow. It's going to cost you a bit more labor. But as you start getting to the point that you start getting stronger and stronger, yeah, you can rush construction really, really quick, and it can become pretty much zero if you know how to stack up bonuses and so on. Obviously it takes a while, but it does definitely help. So we're going to be going over some roster changes. We obviously won't be going over everything, but we'll cover some stuff which is kind of notable. For example, Goblin Laborers have now had their entities changed to 260. There's a lot of them. They're pretty much just to top it here. It's nothing like, they're not an important unit. Orc Laborers, which are obviously better due to the fact that they do have a bit of armor piercing, has been changed to 160. They feel perfectly fine. All in all, I think that they're okay. I still don't see too much of a reason for Goblin Laborers, barring just a top hit, and even then they break quite fast. Hobgoblin, Cutthroats, and Sneaky Gits both have 200 entities, whilst the standard Archers have 140. They've had a few changes here and there, like for example, the Cutthroats and Sneaky Gits are just in general better with dealing against some infantry. They've got a little bonus. This should make them last a little bit longer, especially with how SFO does the battles, you know. You want to be able to do as much damage out as they're going to be hitting you just as hard in. Chaos Dwarf Warriors, so pretty much all your standard Chaos Dwarfs have been changed. Now they have 80 entities instead of 100, which makes them a tad more elite. I think this is a very good change, as obviously there's supposed to be a lot less Chaos Dwarfs in lore, so it kind of brings it down there. They were also given a lot of fire resistance, 20% fire resistance. In general, that's pretty good. The shields give them extra experts charge defense, and the great weapons also give them charge defense versus large, so it really much depends what you want. The blunderbusses aren't really going to be changed much, but then again, blunderbusses are, let's be honest, very, very strong. Infernal Guard, so pretty much great weapons, standard hand weapon and shield, and also the Fire Glaive have been buffed up quite well. Down to 80 entities once again, all of them having immune to psychology and also fear. They've also been given 40% fire resistance, meaning that they're going to be a lot better to deal with, say for example, Imric, any faction which has a bit of fire. They've also been made a little better, so the shields are a bit better with scaling damage, with extra charge defense. The great weapons have a bit more scaling damage also, and the fire glaives do a lot more damage to bonus versus large on melee, which is going to be quite good considering that the fire glaive themselves is supposed to be a 200 weapon. Bull centaurs overall have been given a little bit of boost to damage, so the shields give them 55% block chance, great weapons gives them plus 20 damage versus large, and the dual weapon variant does plus 10 versus infantry. Now, you will notice that you have a lot more entities, meaning that you will be doing damage faster, but you will be taking damage faster too, as entities will start to die. So, I think it's balanced out quite well. I mean, they're still going to be strong regardless. They're strong in Manila too. Still favorite unit of mine, so that's a fun thing. The last thing that we'll discuss is the magma cannons and the Deathshriekers. There's obviously other changes, but don't you worry, eventually Venrus will make the patch notes live and you'll be able to check those out. But magma cannons and Deathshriekers have now had extra unit entities, so rather than being single entities, they are 4 entities, which is kind of good. Magma cannons did get nerfed though, minus 50 range, reduced damage, obviously knockback increased. They are very, very accurate though. You're going to keep in mind that obviously having a lot more entities means having less range is good balance here. The Deathshriekers will be able to do a little bit more now, which is good, considering that they do underperform. They do very much underperform, so I'm quite happy that this is now the case. So yeah, the Chaos Dwarfs got some nice changes overall. It might take some getting used to for some people if you've been playing non-stop Chaos Dwarfs since launch, and I know some people have. But this is always the case when it comes to a overhaul mod. It's supposed to give you a completely different experience, so you can enjoy vanilla and then you can enjoy a modded version just to kind of give you something new until new content drops, which again, very, very useful. I must say, I played a few hours with the Chaos Dwarfs. I found it a little bit difficult at the beginning, and then as soon as I got my footing, it was like, oh yeah, this is simple, and it was pretty good to go. It was to the point where a campaign where I had a very, very good bonuses stacking up regarding the labor cost, and I was getting a lot of stuff pretty much next to free. By that point, I was already starting to push into the old world, as I'd already taken over Grand Cafe. For some reason, I always keep pushing into the Mountains of Morn and then Grand Cafe. But yeah, I would say that this is pretty cool. Very nice changes. The Deathshriekers feel great. Yeah, which is something it's been hard to say lately. Like, yeah, they're good at single shots in vanilla, but they've just not been good for the AoE shots. And it's going to be one of those things which is going to be very hard to do as single entities, I think. This isn't like the tabletop where you're still scattering anyway, so you weren't going to be using it anyway. I think overall, if you want a new experience and you want to use a lot of Deathshriekers, this is definitely something that you want to use. And it's really satisfying when you're dealing with loads of hordes, which is, well, pretty much this, the Skaven, and so on. What you can see here is a randomly generated army of vampire counts, which I did struggle against. I was actually quite impressed with that. They do hit hard. I forgot how strong vampires are in SFO. It does definitely give them a bit more, you know, reasoning to be up and running and so on. Summons are better, heals are better. But yeah, let me know what you guys think regarding the Chorf changes in the comments below. The SFO team will be checking out the comments for thoughts and criticisms and so on. And with all that being said, have a great day, guys. I'll let the rest of the battle play out, and I'll see you all again very, very soon.
Mustang! Hey! Grums var elves!
Drafjan!
Hobgoblin here!
Flees! Hasud arut! Hasud ubi!
Hobgoblin Akasas! Yes, Batlu! Serious to slaughtering? What?
Droshkazak Wagus! Kauman Sianun Tu!
Bertsche! Yeah! Hobgobbleria! Dumlet Coyote Dashpad! Hobgobbler Akashas! Grutash Hobgobbler! This one's, boys! The best hits! Takamagos!
Kauman Sianuntu!
Work, Sam! Hobgoblin nearly stuck again! This rug out!
Justan as to Oskul!
Far out, Kazukas!
Asgul! Ulawaku! There! Utak ala brik nartu! Ud edu on Ragnar! Jar! Ulasa! Utshad ulsog I! Asgul! Ulawaku!
Patron boy!
Is ut! Usala su! Uti agre!
This rug out!
Kauman Sianuntu!
Hobgoblin!
Kauman Sianuntu! Smash up! Jar Unazan! Afessa El Gramus! Kauman Sianuntu! Telskos! Tenudra!